Breaking news in a CBS Sports HQ where Garrett Crochet and the Red Sox have agreed to a 6-year, $170 million contract. This comes according to ESPN. The deal will start in 2026 and has Crochet with an opt-out after 2030. Crochet earned his first All-Star appearance last year. The Red Sox acquired the power pitching lefty from the White Sox in December for 4 prospects. Crochet went 5 innings, gave up 2 runs in his Red Sox debut on opening day. With that, we say hello to David Samson. And David, we spoke on that day about Crochet and the potential to pitch this season for something like this. You said, we got to see results. Well, 5 and some change and a couple runs, that'll get you 170. What's your reaction here?
Well, I think you may have misunderstood me because what I said is that we needed to see about 5 innings. And then after that, we'd be ready to go right now. So I understand you're trying to say that I was wrong because you thought that I said we need to see him pitch like the whole year. But what I meant was the whole 5 innings.
I'm on board with it. We knew something of this ilk was going to happen. I'm not here to point out anything we did on the day. I'm only here to highlight the oddity of maybe what we're looking at right now. Maybe this was where we'd end up, but to end up here so soon, David, it's interesting. You've given out contracts, I don't know about this magnitude, but you've given out major life-changing money before. What goes into a deal like this, and what do you make of the way that this contract is constructed?
Well, I think you really have to think about the player because when I go back to him in his previous role as a really good pitcher for a really bad team in a place on the south of a side of a city, I recall that he was going to be traded at the trade deadline, and this player said, no, don't trade me unless you extend me. And if you don't extend me, then don't expect me to play in October. And I got very upset and said, then nobody's going to trade for him. You don't want that type of player on your team. He ends up then getting traded in the offseason, a great pickup for the Red Sox, who I picked to go win the pennant this year, notwithstanding this horrific start by the team. But the theory is when you get a player like that, under normal circumstances, you let him pitch and then you sign him. There are times when we traded Dontrell Willis to the Tigers gave him an extension, sight unseen. They just paid him the money. They'd never lived with him. They'd never done anything with him. And that contract was pretty rough on the Tigers. My view is that you can get to know a guy in the clubhouse during spring training. Good guy in the clubhouse. You can get a pretty good early reading. Spring training games, meaningless. But you can get a look at work ethic, preparation. Does he study the hitters? Then you get to the regular season. Let's see how his pitchability is. Let's see if this guy who can talk and this guy, can he walk the walk? So you expect there to be at least a few starts through April. Just a few, a smidge. What the Red Sox
Turn
said
over the rotation once or twice, David.
I mean, listen, we're crazy, Joe. We're saying once or twice in the rotation. They're saying once or twice in the batting order. So clearly what Boston said through Craig Breslow, someone who played for me, someone I know well, brilliant, Yaley, love him, analytically driven. He looked and said, now, because if we wait, our numbers tell us he's going to be in a position to make even more next year. So let's get him signed up, except let's pay him the most money anyone got as a 4+. So clearly the Red Sox acquired him thinking they were going to extend him because of the trade. But it doesn't mean you had to do it now. They had control over him the entire year, plus. So I question the timing. However, let me go to the good side, Joe. Red Sox struggling, 1-3, 1-4. Dever can't get a hit. They were picked to win the pennant by that guy Samson on that show, Nothing Personal. We got to step it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bob and weave. We're going to say, yeah, we didn't start great, but let me tell you, we're going to be there at the end, and we're going to be there for years after the end of this year. Why don't we go ahead and sign him right now?
Yeah, maybe some live BP for Devers as we try and get this Boston Red Sox thing rolling in the right direction. But the money counters rolling in the right direction here for Garrett Crochet, 28.3 on an average annual value, parks him as the 6th highest paid arm in the sport. So maybe like quarterbacks, as you allude to there, David, you got to get it done now because the price only goes up, especially if the play was to follow this season. Crochet a season ago was fourth in the AL in punchies with 209. Talked about pressure and the deal that they did with the White Sox. How much pressure was there on this front office for Boston to get this done at some point because of the prospects that they seeded?
So it's a great question, and it causes much debate prior to the trade being done. We had a rule that every minute prior to a trade agreement being signed is when all the nays and the yays get together and we talk amongst each other. You're a nay, why? You're a yay, explain. So we would go through all the different machinations that could happen. He has a Cy Young year. Then what do? He comes out of the gate. He gets hurt after a month. He misses 3 months. What does that impact? Because we're talking about impacts to a future free agent offer to this player. Under all scenarios in my career, none of them ever was, hey, let's just give him a start. So to me, that is my focus tonight. My focus is on the timing, and it's definitely not because the Red Sox weren't playing well. I was just making that up so I could maybe believe there was a reason. It can't be about there's not enough time left in the season to turn around. It's only been 5 games. It can't be that they learned everything about Crochet since spring training. Salt of the earth guy. This guy won't get hurt. This guy is perfect. Well, just in case we're wrong, how about more than once through the rotation? So everything points to waiting. And what are you getting? What's the benefit of this deal? Is the fan base all excited because they think they're investing in a young player, keeping him for a couple extra years? Maybe ticket prices can go up. Or is the player excited and the Red Sox realized that that player they have is the same player who was on the White Sox, the same player who said, extend me now, extend me now. And he prevailed.
He certainly did, and it's hard to look at this any other way but that, but the timing of it is interesting. Maybe the numbers make sense, but the time in which these numbers came down is interesting, and I'm appreciative of you digging into some of that here. When we talk about a pitcher of this power style and a pitcher that we're expected to mow down lineups and go about it in the power pitching form, he's the ace. So much is expected of him already. With the contract now on top of all of that expectation, I'm sure you have anecdotes of players that have gone one of 2 ways after receiving a contract like this, life-changing, career-affirming. When we look at Crochet and what's expected of him now, it can go one of 2 ways for he and the Red Sox. What are your expectations moving forward?
I'm going to do something nice because I'm in the best mood and I was dressed because I had a feeling something funky was going to happen in the world in which we populate. So I was so happy to sit here and be able to say this to you, Joe. How about this as a possibility? How about it became clear in his mind that his position about not pitching in October unless he had an extension was his way of saying, and his agent saying to the Red Sox, we're going to be pitching in October, and you're going to want me being the #1 pitcher in October, and all it's going to cost you, I'm taking a discount, wink, wink. It's only about 28.3, wink, wink. Yeah, it's true, I haven't done it very often, but I'm telling you I'm super good now. So you get him signed now, and what it means is he's now willing to play in October. So the Red Sox don't need to worry about the White Sox never had to worry about because they were never going to play in October. So it becomes a situation where you solve a bunch of problems. But why? Why so early in the season do you need to solve these problems? You can let these problems go 2 more months. Easy. We say he's an ace. He's not an ace. He acts like an ace. He looks like an ace. He feels like an ace. There's a super good chance he's going to be an ace. But when you look around Major League Baseball, we don't throw aces around like schools throw around B+, A- when they want the kids to look good to their parents. An ace is a word that's hard to come by. And if you put that list on, Joe, that had the players and the amount of money they were making and where Crochet was, you had a full screen on that. Do you remember we did that like 2 minutes ago? It was a great full screen. My guess is if you look at that, let's look at that name. Is there a name there that may not belong in terms of performance so far in the big leagues, success in the big leagues? I'll have to put my glasses on, but I can't read it. So let's pretend you have players like Zach Wheeler or DeGrom or Snell, even a Garrett Cole and a Corbin Burns. And if you really wanted to, Joe, you could put in Tyler Glasnow and Max Fried. I don't know if you did that. But if you
Spot on there, David Samson. Spot on.
If you put those guys on, what you'd find is they're a little different than Garrett Crochet. Maybe not at the end of the day or the end of the year or the end of his career, but today he's different. That's the risk the Red Sox took. That's the risk that they think was worth it to take, and that's a risk that's really hard for a majority of teams to take.
Yeah, I'll offer the quarterback parallel once again. It's like today's market where quarterbacks are being paid for what's expected of them, not what has been accomplished, and maybe this is that sort of deal for Garrett Crochet, but again, conspicuous is the timing. I'm just glad that I get to sit here and picture David Samson about to reach for the PJs, but sensing a disturbance in the force and going for the sport coat. That's why you're the best, pal. We'll talk to you soon.
Joe, it's exactly what happened. PJ's left, Blazer on the right. I had this weird feeling that when I looked at my phone, there'd be something, and it was Rich. And when Rich texts me, it's not to borrow, an olive oil. It's to say, are you dressed?
And that is our ace. David Samson, thank you as always. Here's a look at the odds to win the AL. As we said, some division over there. Yanks, O's, and then the Sox situating third at plus 750. Garrett Crochet, now with big bills behind him, going to be a big part of that expectation.